believe that if you make a commitment to do something, that you should stick to that commitment. And for example, with this treaty, since we made a commitment to go into that treaty, we should stick with that treaty. And I like to say that really repealing a treaty is much different than just not going into a treaty. We could have chose to not go into the START treaty and not ratify it. However, we chose to do that. And it's really our part to keep our word, to keep that going. Today in my speech, I will be going over the arguments which are brought up in the last affirmative team speech, and then I will be giving some voting issues for why you as a judge should vote for the negative team today's debate round. First of all, she said that we would actually be changing relations in a bad way, and that Russia might think that the U.S. could bring up a new treaty. Actually, well, let's say in like 20 years after New START has fulfilled all of its things and it gets ended, okay? How about that? Then the U.S. could bring up a new treaty. There's nothing wrong with that. The New START treaty is fine. There's nothing wrong with the New START treaty, as I will be showing in their speech, and it would actually not be a bad thing for the U.S. to be bringing up a new treaty. So it would actually, yes, be changing relations in a good way. Now, she said that we did have extraordinary events. Well, first of all, we did not have it since the ratification of the New START treaty, which is just a month and a half ago, I believe it was. And if you really look and say, well, Russia was doing something bad 2 years ago, so we're going to be punishing Russia by repealing this treaty that was just ratified 1.5 months ago. No, we could be repealing it for any reason of anything Russia did bad in the past history of anything, but really our extraordinary events should be focused on what has happened since the treaty has been ratified. And since we did ratify it, we really should be sticking with it and keeping our policies and keeping our word and sticking with that treaty. And now to her point, she said that the whole reason that we got out of the ABM treaty did have extraordinary circumstances and that everyone was really fine with that. However, I have multiple responses. First of all, the ABM treaty and the New START treaty are not even remotely the same, so they should not be compared at all. Second of all, we withdrew from the ABM decades after it was ratified, not just 1.5 months like we are doing with the New START treaty. Third of all, Russia backed out of another treaty that we were doing with Russia because we withdrew from the ABM treaty, so Russia was actually mad at us for withdrawing from this other treaty. And fourth of all, it made Europe mad, all of Europe, to be getting out of this anti-ballistic missile treaty, and it really was causing bad relations. So actually, yes, this example of the ABM treaty did not go all that well. And she also said that New START has good verification, sorry, that she said that it had bad verification, and that if you went into Russia and if you did the searches that it was only searching 5 sites. Well, searching 5 sites, I like to say, is a whole lot better than searching no sites at all. And we did bring up an example of a site that Russia was building at that we had no clue of because there was no START treaty in effect. And I like to say that really searching 5 sites, even if it is only 5 sites, which I'm not sure that it even is, but it's a whole lot better than searching no sites at all. Now I like to go down to my voting issues. My first is out of missile defense. Well, first of all, missile defense was not included in the treaty text. If you as a judge would like to see the piece of evidence that was brought up in the 1NC about this, you can actually see that. I do not have time to read it. It was an extremely lengthy piece of evidence. It was basically saying that missile defense was not even included in the text of the treaty. This was dropped in the last affirmative speech. Now our second voting issue is about how there is no really extraordinary purposes to withdraw from this treaty. We have shown that since the treaty was ratified 1.5 months ago, and nothing surprisingly has happened since it has happened. Our third voting issue is that our disadvantages. This is really a big one, and this should really be the crux for why you should vote for the negative team. Our first one was that of damaged U.S. security. Basically, to summarize this, what we would be doing if we did do the affirmative team's plan is we would be having no idea what is going on in Russia at all, which could be hurting the U.S. national security. I did bring up evidence for this in my past speech because Russia and U.S. put together have 90% of the nuclear weapons in the world, and we need to know what's going on in the other countries who together we hold most of the nukes in the world. And now my third voting issue was that of the international repercussions. And first of all, everybody was mad at us when we betrayed, when we withdrew the ABM treaty, and also we betrayed Britain, and now we are pulling out of this treaty. And Russia also loved the New START treaty, and the UN also really loved this treaty. And what happened with Britain is that we actually went behind Britain's back to ratify this treaty, and then if we just get out of it, it would really be been doing that for no purpose. And my last voting issue, my fourth one, is that of political power and how Obama really works hard, and that removing this plan would actually be having Congress wasting time on passing this bill. So please vote for the negative. Thank you.